Learning about Gemara. We're in Sechta Taina Daf Tes Amud Aleph, and we discussed the conversation between Rabbi Yechon and his nephew, who was a precocious child, and actually quite sharp. And we didn't learn last night the retort that the nephew had to his uncle when he explained to him that aser means you give mice in order to become wealthy. You want to test Eibishter, because there's a pasuk in Malachi that says, the Eibishter says, test me here. So the kid then responded to his uncle, and he said the following: Amalei. So we're about 13 lines on top. Amalei, he said, havi moti l'hasam. Oh, he's a big chacham. You're smarter than me because you reached Malachi. I didn't get to Malachi yet. If I would have learned Tanakh and I would have gotten to Malachi, lahai psukim, I would have learned this pasuk. Lahavet tzrichen loch ulahoishi rabach. I didn't your help or hoishi rabach. I would have known the answer myself. You're not telling me anything new. The Sue, another conversation. Ashkeche Rabbi Yechanan liyenuke Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yechanan once found the nephew of his nephew, Reish Lakish's son, V'Amar, and he said, "Ivelis Adam." This is what the kid said. Ivelis Adam, the foolishness of a person to salad darkei, distorts his ways, and Bal Hashem Yizafli. By then he blames the Eibush, gets angry for everything that happens. Yossi Rabbi Yechon sat to become a tam, and he was wondering, and he was he said, "Miika midi, is there anything the chsivi b'ksuvi that's written in the vima ksuvim, b'loy mitzah b'raisa, and that you wouldn't find any clue of it in the Torah? Everything comes from Torah Shebiksav. The Chumash is the side of the vim and ksuvim, so there must be somewhere some kind of allusion to this in the Torah, that we blame everything to Eibush, even though it's our own fault." So the nephew said, Amalei, Otuha Miloi Lemizi. So the nephew said, now this nephew gets a little bit older. He says it's Mefedish of the Torah, or at least it's alluded to in Torah. When the brothers of Yosef had to go through experience with going to Mitzrayim and buying from Yosef and all that. So and the money was put back in their things, so they were all frightened. So Vayetze Libam, they sort of almost passed out. And they were there to trepidation, and they were saying to each other, who do they blame? The Eibishter. Maybe there's their own fault because you sold Yosef. They didn't take any responsibility for themselves. Same idea. So this nephew has actually answered Rabbi Yechon's question. Dal Ein Rabbi Yechon had very thick eyebrows, and it covered his eyes. And when you learn a story about Metzia between him and Reish Lakish, where when he gave an Ein Hara, the damage that it can cause, he lifted his eyebrows. The Chazabein started to look at the Reish Lakish's son. No, the son outsmarted him, and he was, I guess, offended. Asi Ime, so his mother came along, Rabbi Yechon's sister. Afikte pulled him away. She said to her son, Tombi Kame, get up and leave quickly. I don't want him to do to you like he did to his father. He had a special fork that he would sit and lift his eyebrows when he wanted to see something. That's why he was able to sit. We had him where Bracha was able to sit by the mikveh, and of the mikveh's nashim, there's no issue because he couldn't say anything anyway. Says Gemara, Rabbi Yechon says, Motor Bishvil Yochid. Rabbi Yechon says that rain can come down for an individual. If an individual needs rain, it can come down. Parnosa Bishvil Rabim. But when it comes to Parnosa, so Rashi says Parnosa means we want prosperity for a whole city, for a multitude of people. Then it's Bishvil Rabim. We need the Rabim to earn it, to deserve it. Rain could come down even for one if one individual deserves it. So he said, it says, V'yiftach Hashem l'cha, in singular form. Es oitzarei hatoy. They will open up his warehouse to give you the rain that you need. But if you need a bracha for a multitude of people, then it's not enough to have only one person deserving it. You need a whole bunch of people deserving it. And Parnosa b'shvil Rabim, Parnosa for Rabim, the Chsiv it says, Hinimam lechem lechem. And Rashi adds, when it's for a yochid and the yochid is davening, the Eibishter will replenish your field and give you equal to others. But to make you exceed other field, that will not happen if it's too individual. Basically, you're telling me an individual cannot get for the rabbi. That's a question. Three leaders that stood, that were good ones, that stood for the Eden, and Moshe, Aaron, and Midian. The Gimel Matanas Tevin, and they gave three gifts to the Eden, the well, the cloud, the man, and the man. The well came in the Chuz of Miriam. Amud Anon b'schus Aaron, the cloud was that involved the Eden, that was the schus of Aaron, and Mon is b'schus Moshe. What happened when Mesa Miriam passed away? The Stalik Abed, the Be'er stopped. You never said about Thomas and Miriam. And after that, we have the entire story of Mei Meriva. There was no water left for the Eden. Moshe Rabbeinu had to speak to the rock, hit the rock. And he came back, came back with schus of both of them. And that is why, if you read the story there, it's very difficult to understand why was Aaron punished. Moshe did everything, but it says here that the Be'er came back in the schus of both of them. So Aaron also, in his chus, the Be'er came back, so he should have stopped Moshe hitting, he should striking the rock. He should have said, Moshe, this is our rock, and let's talk to it. Therefore, he's equally culpable, because the rock came back, the water came back in the schus of Aaron, just like came back in the schus of Moshe. Okay, but what happened then? Ultimately, Aaron passed away in the month of Av. 6 months now, there was no Aaron of Miriam. The Stalko Anani Yaakov, and Yaakov also left. How do we know that? Shneimar says, "Vayishma Haknani Melech Harod." So the water didn't stop because Moshe was in schus Moshe and Aaron. Moshe was still there, so the water continued. But the cloud was totally in the schus of Aaron. Now that Aaron passed away, so what happened? So it disappeared as well. How do I know? It says the pasuk Vayishma Haknani Melech Harod. We had this in the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. The Kanani, the king of Aaron, heard Mashmua Shama, but what actually did he hear? He heard Shemes Aaron. He heard Aaron passed away, but it's Talka Nanya covered. And now the Eden are exposed. Now Nanya covered are gone. Maybe they're vulnerable. We can do something. So he thought now he has the ability, has access to Chas V'Shalom Ham the Eden. This is what it says a pasuk. It says Vayiru Kol Eda. All the people saw Ki Gava Aaron passed away. And they cried for 30 days. Those that they saw, they became visible. What do you mean they became visible? Because the cloud disappeared. And this is what we mean over here. Actually darshaned that the word ki can have 4 different interpretations. If Dilma perhaps Ella but that the her but or because. And here we dash as if it's because that the Eden were exposed. Why were they exposed? Because Aaron passed away. And that's why Eden felt that he now, the Eden are vulnerable, and he can take advantage and exploit the situation. The Chazul Shneim is Chus Moshe. And after he passed away, the Ka'anan and the water came back only in Chus Moshe. As Moshe in the Stalko could all disappear. It says, I'll destroy all 3 shepherds, all 3 leaders. I'll remove them in 1 month. Now, we know they didn't all pass away in 1 month. This is Miriam passed away, and this is Aaron passed away in Av, and the first Moshe passed away in Otter. What does it mean? And Malamed, the benefits that they brought, which all of them was transferred to Moshe Rabbeinu, all disappeared in the same month. They all disappeared in 1 month. That means even Moshe took over, it was still connected to Miriam and connected to Aaron, and now they all disappeared. But what we see from here, Moshe unilaterally was able to provide the Eden all of these things. You said that Parnasa cannot come from a Rabbi, cannot come from a Yachid. Yes, he did. Alma Ashka Parnasa B'Shil Yachid. We answer Shaina Moshe. Moshe is different. Why is Moshe different? Because Kivon the Rabbi who by Kirabim Dami. 2 versions of Gemara. Either because he's davening on behalf of the Rabbi, therefore it's like the Rabbi itself, or because he was Moshe Rabbeinu, therefore he was treated like a Rabbi. We had that before, already, the concept. And because he was a leader, he was treated like a Rabbi. These 3 Talmidim used to come before Rabbi, so he was their teacher. But then Kinoch and Rabbi passed away. Also, the kind of Papa came before the Papa. Called Amos Davi Amalu Shmait. Whenever Papa said over something to them, and they felt that there's something wrong here, it's not making sense. They say look at each other and sort of wink at each other to sort of say this to nod that this is not the same madrega, same caliber as their previous Rebbe Rabbi. Imagine a papa. He was completely offended. So he had a dream about papa. And in his dream, he continued seeing the following pasuk. I will remove the three shepherds in 1 month. And he had 3 Talmidim. So he realized that this was a premonition that these 3 Talmidim are going to pass away because they're offending the papa. That day after the share, Amalu, but even though he was offended, he had Rachmanis and these 3 Talmidim Chamim. He said to them, he said, I want you to go in peace. By him giving them a bracha of peace, he counteracted that dream that foretold their departure, their demise. A similar story, I've seen son of Rashi, Papa. He also came to the Papa. See, Papa had a lot of students who didn't like him. And he used to continuously bombard him with questions, and many times our Papa did not have an answer. One day, he saw the Noflape. One day, Rashi saw that our Papa was saying Tachnun, and we had another instance where Abelazar ben Hyrcanus was saying Tachnun. Then he used to ask Hashem for whatever he wanted. And Shammai, he heard the following words being emitted from our Papa's mouth: God protect me, mikisufa desimi, from the shame that Simi puts me to every single day. So Simi to resolve right then and there that he will no longer ask any questions. So actually, will no longer ask any questions. So not to embarrass a papa. Shlakish also agrees that motor can come down for an individual. No, that happened to see. It says the pasuk Shalom Hashem Motor. You can ask Hashem Motor based Malkush, even in the late rain season, the time of Malkush. If you need rain, you can ask Hashem for Motor. Hashem will produce chazizim. We'll see what that is. Motor geshem yitin lehem. He will give them rain. Leish for a person. Esav the grass of this field. Yochel, I would have thought, if you ask for bracha for rain in your field, that automatically everyone else, all your neighbors in your village, all of them will also benefit from the rain. The Eibusha can make it happen that only the person who daven will receive the rain and nobody else. But Tanya, then we learned if it's for that one person, so I would have thought, okay, if one person has 10 fields, at least this one person, all of his 10 fields will benefit. In other words, and so what's wrong with that? We would have thought that if, let's say, only one field needs rain, but the other fields that he owns does not need rain, the Eibush will not grant him the rain. It's only if all the fields that he owns requires rain at the same time, the Eibush will give him the bracha. That's what we would have thought. The individual fields as well, even though the other fields don't require rain. At least the entire field needs rain. It said he has a very large field, 100,000 hectares. Only the entire field needs rain. Even one petal of grass, even if it's only one section of the field needs, that's enough. He had a garden. Every day have a uzzle beside every day we go and monitor the situation. Amar would say, oh, this row over here requires water, this row here does not require water. And what would happen was he was a tzaddik that his tefillahs were always mekuyim. But also mitra, suddenly it was a downpour. The kamashke and what happened? Only that section of the field that required the water it rained upon. The rest didn't. Okay, in that pasuk it says Hashem will chazizim, will make chazizim. What exactly is chazizim? For every single tzaddik, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibush will make his own chazir, the Eibush will make his own patch for his fields. Says the Gemara, you're telling me how you explain the word chaziz in a singular form, but the pasuk actually says chazizim in plural form. What does that mean in plural form? Why is it plural form? What he means is the flying ones, the flying chazizim. What do you mean the flying ones? He says a good simon that there'll be a rain soon is if you see clouds that are moving quickly. These are the clouds that are, I guess, the thinner clouds that are underneath the heavier clouds, and the wind blows them easily away. My parchas are a puppet, even klisha to see with the thin cloud underneath the thick cloud. I'm going to view the nihila mekame mitra. He says when you have a drizzle that's taking place right before a proper rain is as the nihila mekame mitra is actually very good. The heel is actually like flour. So you have first the very thin flour comes through, and then comes the heavy flour, and then comes the thicker rain. Um, Sorry. The heel of a coming means so this rain drizzle before the main rain. Semita means a good sign. The rain is coming, a plentiful rain, and it will let it rain for quite a while. But it Basamita first it rains a heavy rain, and then it turns into a drizzle. It means it's tapering off. Is passing, it will stop. Mitra Mikam Mitra also Mitra with Simonach, and remember is Mohulta when you have a sieve, first starts the very fine flour, then comes the thicker flour. So first the drizzle, then the big rain. The Basa Mitra and the rain that comes after a Pasuk will stop. The Mitra, the rain will stop completely, taper off. The Simonach, if you want to remember that, is Chadia the easy, the dung of a goat starts out heavy and then it becomes light. All equal a bubble, all once came to bubble, Chaza, he saw a parchas. He once came to bubble and he saw these clouds that were flying about. So he so he assumed soon it'll be heavy rains. Amalu Panu, so he gave out instructions. So Panu Mana, the Hashdas Mitra. Everyone will take out all the things that you have sitting outside, bring it into the house, because it's soon about to be a heavy rain. But the Poyol, the Saif, lost there was no rain at all. Amar, he said, aha. So we have a false reading here. And you know why? Because the Babylonians are liars. We had yesterday, one of the reasons why there's a drought is they make big promises to give charity in public, and then they don't cough up the money. So the same thing over here, that they just like these Babylonians lie, so too just like the Babylonian lie, they give these promises of donations, they don't give them. So to the Eibishter lines, it puts out clouds there, gives you the impression that soon there'll be a heavy rain, and it turned out to be there was no rain at all. Ula eagle bubble, Ula Kate the bubble, perhaps a different occasion at the same time. Chazi, he saw that in Babel, Molate son of the basketful the tamri for dates. Bezuzah was so cheap in the marketplace that a basketful of dates cost practically nothing. One zuz. Amar, he said, Molat son of the dusha, because dates were used for honey. There's so much honey available. In other words, food is abundant supply and it's very, very cheap. You don't have to work to make a lot of money. What I said was used to have not to learn title even more. They don't have to work hard because the cost of living is so low. They just work a little bit and they can sit and spend the rest of the time in learning. But Lila that night, he had constipation. He had diarrhea nonstop. And Omar, he then said, and he found favor of the Babylonians. He said, Molit son of the Sakina business, and they buy a basket full of knives because it hurts when he's passing out all his excrement. And a basket full of knives, bezuzah for the cost of bezuzah, guys, and they learned the Torah that they learned. Good on them. Says the entire world gets all its water from the Atlantic Ocean. Ukiyanis literally is the word ocean. And I remember correctly, there's a Mishnah Berurah that talks about if Ukiyanis is just the Atlantic and that side of the world, or includes the Pacific and all the other oceans as well. And the seas, all the waters in the world are interconnected, not the landlocked rivers, but all the other, or lakes, but all the other waters in the world are basically interconnected. So they all might fall under the name of Ukiyanis, which means ocean. In fact, we have a machlekes, sometimes the Mediterranean can be called Ukiyanis. When Rabbi Yehuda says that that Eretz Yisrael goes all the way up to Yam Ukiyanis, does he mean Atlantic Ocean? Does he mean the Mediterranean? How far does he go? So he says all the entire world gets their water from the Ukiyanis, from the oceans. So how can it be? The oceans are full of salt. In other words, the 8 yalam in Oretz, the vapor rises from the ground, and it waters the entire world. So rain, the source of rain, is the vapor from the oceans, and they form the clouds, and then it comes back down here. But if it's ocean water, how can we drink it? Rainwater you can drink rainwater. Sweet. How can we drink the rainwater if it comes from the ocean, which is salty? Is that the rainwater goes like through a filter, and it's transformed when it goes through the clouds into the rainwater, which is drinkable. The Gemara says no. All the waters of the world come from the Mayim. We drink. It says from the rain of the heaven you will drink. What's he going to do with Ma'ani Mekayim Be'ed Yalim? What am I going to do with the fact that the vapors come from the ground? Melamid Sha'ananim Mizgabim, the clouds, you're right, come from the ground. But the clouds are not what produce the water. The clouds are like the receptacle. They go up to the heaven, they open their mouth like a little canteen, and they accept the water, the rain waters that are coming to them. So they themselves don't produce the rain waters. They just, accept the rainwater. Remember, it says, that they pour the water le'edoi. Le'edoi means there's cloud. They have punctures, they have full of holes like a sieve. They go ahead and spread water all over the ground. So it says, that the thick clouds come from chashas mayim. They're like a sieve full of water, they come down. And the raindrops are so close to each other, but yet they don't touch each other. Two raindrops, and in the first page, the raindrops never crash with each other, but the distance between each other is very, very narrow. This machlekes we have in Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shua is actually get halacha as well. The Taisus and Sukkah Daf Yud brings from Yerushalmi that the machlekes there as to Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Lezer as to whether. We learned about the sukkah. We learn over there the cloud, whether the clouds. How do you know that whether the clouds can be used? We learn out from the clouds, because the clouds. If you learn that the clouds are like a nania cover for the schach that we use on the sukkah, also has to be something like gedule karkas that come from the ground. How do we know it has to come from the ground and then be disconnected? How do we know it's come from the ground? Because the nania covered, the clouds came be'ed yalam min haaretz. All the rain and everything else comes from the ground, and therefore the schach that we use to remember that nania covered has to be something that comes from the ground. And the other opinion says no. We follow over here that the Rabbi Yeshua, who says that the cloud, and that's why Rabbi Lezer says that nani hakovet that envelops the Yidden. That's why we sit for Sukkah l'shita say over here that he says that nani hakovet is it comes from the ground, the rain, and therefore the schach, all these did all married together. And there are other views says no, that the clouds have nothing to do with the Eid Yal, it comes from heaven, and therefore the reason why we say the Sukkah is like Rabbi Kiva says Sukkah is mamish. So the Yerushalmi ties this in together. This machlekes to that machlekes there. So as you go further, the Lam teacher should godul yom hakshamim, that the day of rain is that great. Ki yom shdiv my word equal to creation. Remember, it says we had before already. These wonderful things beyond comprehension. See what it says. He gives rain on this world. We'll see when it says after that, and then it says, if you know that you hear that nobody understands the Eibishter. So we see that the word cheke by creation and cheke by the Eibishter, and we find also the word by giving rain. So that's how we say that. That's why we say that producing rain is equal to creation of the world. So according to which opinion does the following pasuk make sense? It says, Mashka Horim Na'ali Yosef. Hashem waters all the hills, the mountains, Mali Yosef from upstairs, from above. From above. The water comes from above. It sounds like Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua, who says that the rainwater comes from Shemayim, because according to Rabbi Lezer, the rainwater comes from the Yam Ukiyonis. But Rabbi Lezer says, I'm not deterred by that pasuk. Even the Sol Kilahasam, I also say that it goes, the water from the oceans comes to the clouds, then it gets filtered through the cloud, it comes back down. Therefore, we can say the water comes from heaven. Mashkim Ali Yosef Karlu, because it actually has an impact on the water. It transforms it from being salty water to sweet water, drinkable water. If you're not going to say that's something that even though ultimately comes from below, but if it eventually goes through the above and then it comes down, we treat it as if it came from above. You're not going to say that. Tell me, how do you explain the following pasuk? It says in the pasuk, Avak v'afer min hashemayim, says here that dust and sand comes from Shemayim. Does it come from Shemayim? It comes from earth. Of us. Elakim in the Madi lahasam, since it rises there in the Shemayim, we can call it Shemayim. So Hachanami here too, we're talking about the in the Teicha. Over here also, Kiman the Salkil Hosam Maliyasu Karalei. Since the water from the oceans go up to Shemayim and then comes back down, we can refer to it as Ma'aliyas. Okay, so the following pasuk, which opinion does this follow? It says, you'll gather together all the waters of the sea, and kaned, like a barrel, nitzen, but tzaras tahimus, he places in his treasury by tzaras tahimus from the deep, from the deep. Migorim letzaras shismalu bar, who what caused all these itzaras, all of these warehouses to be filled up with tvua, with grains. Who filled that up? He said the Tahimus is the tafke, the water that started from below. So it seems from here, which water is it that caused it all to happen? Sounds like Abelezer, the water from the ocean that evaporated, went to Shemaim, that came back down. Abelezer. What's that Yeshua going to say? Ahu bibidiyasa shalaylam. That's talking about when the world was created, the whole world was filled with water. Then the Abishta separated the water from the earth. And the waters he gathers like in a barrel, the sand and the beaches hold the water back. And that's what he means, that these waters, they're the ones who irrigate the entire world. That's nothing to do with that. Okay, we'll stop over here and we'll continue Midshem.